Chaos theory is most well known to most people as being mentioned by Ian Malcolm in Jurassic Park, where unpredictable variables have drastic consequences. And as someone who dabbles both in alternate history and its consequences, as well as a guy with a degree in international affairs, I naturally applied chaos theory to international affairs. Chaos theory, which is sometimes referred to as the language of instability, is an interdisciplinary area of scientific study of math, but it can also be applied to international affairs. The theory focuses on underlying patterns and deterministic laws of dynamical systems that are highly sensitive to initial conditions, suggesting that seemingly small events can have large and unforeseen consequences and making an accurate prediction very difficult. Essentially, it views the international system as inherently complex and prone to sudden shifts. Unlike traditional theories that might focus on a stable power dynamic system, these systems were once thought to have completely random states of disorder and irregularities. However, chaos theory states that within the apparent randomness of the chaotic complex systems, there are underlying patterns, interconnection, constant feedback loops, repetition, self-similarity, fractals, and self-organization. This is more commonly known as the butterfly effect, and it is an underlying principle of chaos and describes how a small change in one state of deterministic nonlinear systems can result in a large difference from a larger state. Now you might be wondering at this point what chaos theory, being a piece of mathematics and physics, has to do with international affairs and what all of that means. Well, on the world stage, seemingly random and unpredictable things happen all of the time, and countries have drastic impacts due to these appearingly chaotic instances. Some common measurements are in gains for international information systems and intelligence, as well as preemptive strikes. Examples of these are the Battle of Midway, where the US cracked the Japanese code, and the Arab-Israeli Six-Day War. But let's look at a few case studies for a more grand-scale vision. Starting with something simple like the German monarchy. Kaiser Frederick III died after 99 days on the throne due to cancer from smoking, and his chancellor Otto von Bismarck had a strong and realist foreign policy where Germany had open talks with Russia and had even preserved peace in Europe. However, when Frederick III died and was succeeded by his son Wilhelm II, things drastically changed for Germany and subsequently Europe. Wilhelm II opposed Bismarck's careful foreign policy and preferred vigorous and rapid expansion to enlarge Germany's, quote, place in the sun. Wilhelm II essentially tore down the German political alliance with Russia and started a rivalry with Britain because of his deformed arm, which he blamed on his British mother, and he was generally very stupid on the international front, and eventually came World War I. Of course, an example of chaos theory would be the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in 1914, which then spiraled into World War I. Another First World War related instance is the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917. You see, when the Bolsheviks took over in Russia, it put the rest of the world in panic mode as Eastern and Central Europe saw militant revolutionaries attempting to seize power. The United States also witnessed its first Red Scare in the post-World War I era, as would most of the world. You see, before the war, most countries had not really even heard much of Marxism, and anarchism was the prime violent political conflict ideology with bombings. But after the Russian Revolution, communism had its first country, and that ideology would be dominant on the world stage for the rest of the 20th century. The interwar years also saw chaos theory applies as it relates to the rise of Bolshevism and the rise of reactionary ideologies such as fascism and Nazism in Italy and Germany. It didn't help that post-World War I Germany was basically a battle royale for all radical ideologies, with violent political conflict and militant groups basically taking hold of the political arena. Again, it's an unpredictable piece of the butterfly effect of chaos theory. The Bolsheviks came to power in Russia, and Eastern Europe goes into full revolutionary fever. Germany and Italy then witness extremists come to power as a reactionary result, and of course World War II then happens. The post-World War II world and Cold War also had various examples of chaos theory. The Korean War is a solid example of the theory applied to the United Nations, as at the time, the Soviet Union was boycotting the UN, and Taiwan held China's seat. So UN troops went to Korea to fight against the North Koreans and Red China. Additionally, the Cold War and mutually assured destruction made direct conflict between superpowers undesirable, with nuclear weapons, of course. So proxy wars and clandestine operations became the new norm. Okay, turning to a more focused and in-depth look at chaos theory on a specific country, starting with Iraq. Following Saddam Hussein's rise to power and the Iranian Revolution, Saddam saw an opportunity in the invasion of Iran. Then came the Iran-Iraq War, where Iran saw a rally around the flag effect, and Saddam also executed all of his competent generals for one small loss or after a major victory out of fear that that general would become too popular among the public. Of course, the Gulf War was then another result of the Iran-Iraq War, which was caused by Saddam's reign over Iraq and very poor judgment. Iraq was demolished in the Gulf War, but George H.W. Bush left Saddam in power out of fears of creating a power vacuum. But then came the 1992 U.S. presidential election, where Bill Clinton won and enacted hardcore sanctions on the country, which increased sectarian violence between Shia and Sunni groups to an unseen height of ethnic violence, so that when the United States invaded in 2003, the insurgency and civil war in Iraq became as bloody as it could be until it ended with the troop surge. Iraq as a case study shows chaos theory as having one little thing like Saddam Hussein in power, causing Iraq to go down the path of a disastrous war with Iran, and then turn the world against the country in the Gulf War, then having something seemingly small like Bill Clinton become president in 1992, which saw his nomination for Democrats as a fluke because many well-known Democrats chose not to run in the wake of Bush's high approval ratings from the Gulf War. Yet the 1992 recession caused him to lose the election. It was the perfect storm for chaos theory, where these small changes had drastic consequences for Iraq, which set up the conditions for the ultra-violent situation in the Iraq War. Another more modern example is the Arab Spring. The factor of social media led many pro-democracy protesters across the Middle East and North Africa to coordinate in the masses and demand regime change. Social media is, of course, the chaos theory factor here, which exponentially shifted the power politics of the Arab Spring against the regimes. Some countries like Tunisia and Egypt witnessed a relatively peaceful transition of power, while others like Libya and Syria saw civil wars break out. Again, chaos. These are, of course, just a few examples of chaos theory being present in international affairs and the world stage, where small changes that are seemingly random can have drastic impacts on the world stage. What other examples can you think of? If you're confused, please write in the comments, and thank you for watching.